So good morning, everyone. The first thing I'm going to have to do is apologize. Apparently my spell check did not work, so I apologize that I both got engagement and symposium incorrect. So for those of you that are now awake, we're good. It is absolutely a real pleasure to be with you here today. Public participation is a passion for me. I have been involved in it for about 17 years, started off within the labor movement and have worked my way through government and was manager of public participation and government outreach for TransLink and now run my own business. But I'm really here today to talk to you about IAP2 Canada and IAP2 International. So I thought I'd start off first with talking a little bit about who we are. And I'm going to read occasionally, so I hope you bear with me when I do read from my slides, but I just want to really make sure that I get the quotes correctly. IAP2 is an association of members who seek to promote and improve the practice of public participation in relation to individuals, governments, institutions, and other entities that affect the public interest in nations throughout the world. So just a quick show of hands. Does anyone here belong to IAP2? Oh, excellent. So we definitely have some members here. So we are both an international organization and with national affiliates. For those of you that do know a little bit about IAP2, several years ago we were a whole international organization. But about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, we made the decision to become a federation of affiliates. And so as a federation of affiliates, we are combined with Australasia, Canada, France, Italy, Indonesia, Southern Africa, UK, Ireland, and the United States of America. We're almost 4,000 strong now around the world. But what I'm going to be talking about today is IAP2 core values, ethics, the spectrum, and one of the things that you'll find from all of our members that we have in common is a confidence and a baseline in these products. So I'll get into that in a little bit more. We also have emerging affiliates. We have those both in Portugal and in Western Africa. And I was talking to a colleague in Germany this morning because they're also planning on putting an affiliate together. So who are we in Canada? As I said, we are a national affiliate, and as a national affiliate, we have a website, we run conferences, we do webinars, we run training, all of these different types of things. But when we talk to our members, we ask them, well, what would you also really like? And they said, we'd like the opportunity to chit-chat to our peers. We'd like to be able to have good professional development opportunities within our own neighborhood. And really, and I was talking to Yoshi this morning about having a peer review. So we have chapters throughout Canada. Wild Rose, which is our Alberta chapter, is one of the first chapters in Canada and has been around for a very long while. I know Jan's taking pictures, but Jan's here from the Wild Rose chapter as well as being a board member on IAP2 Canada. And it's really, if you want that opportunity to network with your peers, have that professional development opportunity and things like that, I would strongly encourage you to get in contact with your members here, both in Calgary and Edmonton. I know that they have events quite frequently, and I know that they're planning a symposium in the spring. So this is our vision. This vision was actually jointly made. We put out a call for people to identify what did they want to do, what did they want to see, and this is the vision and the mission that we came up with for IAP2 Canada. Does this resonate with people in the room? Yeah? We felt that this was appropriate for who we are and what we wanted to do. So what do we consider as public participation? And Robin, this was one of the questions that when you went out initially to do the work that you did, you were asking that kind of question. What is it? So this is how we define it. IAP2 views public participation as any process that involves the public in problem solving or decision making and uses public input to make those decisions. Does that resonate again with you? For all of you that are involved in public engagement and processes, It's very much the decision making. And how is the public going to be involved in that process? So why would you undertake public participation? There's many reasons to undertake public participation. These are just some of them. Does anyone else have any idea or reason why they would undertake P2? Any thoughts? Yes, please.
We often do it just for building awareness.
Okay. Building awareness, excellent. Anybody else? Okay. So there are many more reasons, and as you're going to hear throughout today, people are going to give you ideas of what they've done and why they've done it, and how they've involved the public. So this is just a kickstart to your process, but this is, again, just some of the ideas. I'm actually going to put you all to work right now. So I'm going to get you to introduce yourself to your neighbor, and you are going to spend the next 4 to 5 minutes really talking to your neighbor. And if you've, before the 4 to 5 minutes is up, if you want to go and talk to somebody else, that's fine too. But I want you to talk to your neighbor about a time that you were involved in a really positive and meaningful engagement experience. Why was it positive and meaningful? What did you get out of it? What were the different components involved in this process that you went, that was fabulous? You have 4 to 5 minutes. Start talking. So I'm going to get you to round off your conversations. Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to get your attention back to me for just a few minutes. I have to say, to me, this is what public participation is all about. It's all about the dialogue and the engagement and having great, good conversations. But I want to hear from you, just a few of you. What were some of the factors that made your public participation experience meaningful? Can a few of you give me some? Yes, please.
Yes, I was at a city engagement session on Wednesday about possible changes to the main road through my neighborhood, and some people really want it and some people don't want it. And I think there were a couple of important things. One is that we actually were given useful information. We came away learning stuff that we hadn't already known.
Good.
And secondly, that each table had a facilitator who managed to keep people's tempers in check, and everybody listened to everybody. And that's an art. I don't know how he did, but people came with strong views, and yet they talked and listened to each other.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Yes, please, at the back here.
Yeah, I was involved in engaging families and children and youth in the planning of the new Children's Hospital in Calgary, as well as the Children's Hospice. And I think there were two things that made that really a rewarding experience. One is the engagement process was over a period of time. So there were multiple ways for families and youth to have input over a period of time. And they really shaped what happened in terms of both sites and programming as a result of their input. So there was direct impact. And they were very rewarded by the experience, and I think others were as well. Again, it really changed the look of both of those, look and feel of both of those facilities.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, please.
I was working last year with the City of Edmonton on how services are delivered to African communities. And we had a couple of community engagement sessions, and one of the successful success factors with us is that we actually had people self-select groups they wanted to work with, and we used a group called Community Animators. Some of you may have heard of them. They're with the Multicultural Coalition, and they are trained facilitators to help manage the dialogue process at the tables.
So very much providing a comfortable atmosphere for everyone to engage and to participate. Excellent. One last person. Anybody want to talk about? So has everyone here in the room at least had one opportunity to attend a really meaningful engagement process? Just raise your hands. Has anyone not? Okay, a challenge. What I want to talk to you about right now is the foundations from IAP2. And I was just speaking to Kirby and Robin earlier on. And a lot of what we do is we use the expression, we go slow to go fast. Because we really believe that you need to invest a lot of time up front before you even walk out the door to have those kinds of conversations. So many of us jump right into it. I want to do an open house. Nope. I want to do a workshop. I want to do a citizens jury. Any of those types of things. There's so many different techniques out there. And many of the techniques are wonderful. But I would suggest to you that you really need to think long and hard up front before you even think about techniques. So I'm going to go through our foundations. How many of you think about values before you go into that? Okay, some of you. Okay, community values. Let's talk a little bit about community values. What are they? What do you think some community values might be? Environment, affordability, aesthetic qualities. Any of these ringing bells with you? Yeah, healthy well-being, all of those types of things. But how do you get those? I mean, you talk about community values and you think, oh, you know, should I be going out and having this conversation? Shouldn't I be going out and having this conversation? What should I do? How are some of the ways that you might look into your community? Any thoughts? Media. Has the media been talking about those situations? You just talked about a road change that's happening in Edmonton. Has that come up in your community newsletter or anywhere else within Edmonton? Oh, yes. Have your neighbors been talking about it? Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone's here from the city of Edmonton, but I know Jan's here. Jan, had anyone at the city been informed that this was a problem or an issue? Yes. So she's very pleased to hear that you enjoyed it. There are many different ways to find out how your community feels. And one of the reasons that this is critically important for you to think about up front is you're actually going to need to know how passionate are people about this particular project that you might be doing. Is this something that's going to be volatile and potentially blow up on you, or do people not care? And you need to ask that. Just because you care, your stakeholders and your public may not. Or you may actually have stakeholders with your internal environment that care passionately about it. But outside, in the bigger public, they may not. So take the time to ask these questions. This is the project I'm going out with. Does my community care? And what is my community? And the other thing that you'll find, if you take our training, is that there's different orbits. So there may be people that are very interested in what it is. And then as you go out, people may just want to know that it's happening and going on. They might not want to become involved or participate in any of your things that you're doing. Sponsor values. How many here have guidelines or principles within their organization for public engagement? Quick show of hands. If I can recommend anything, it often helps you if you create your own principles or guidelines. How are you going to engage? When are you going to engage? So that if anyone comes back to you at some point in time and says, you know, I don't know what you stand for or your organization stands for from a public engagement perspective, you can say, this is what we stand for from a public engagement perspective. Now your mission and vision, and I'm sure all of you will have mission and vision, will also really identify where the public or stakeholders fit within your process. But take a look, there's many different examples. In fact, the City of Edmonton has a very good public engagement policy online. So take a good look at that, because they talk about how will you engage and why will you be engaged. These are IAP2 core values. And when I worked for TransLink, we stole from this, just so that you know. We created community engagement principles for TransLink in Vancouver. But basically, we used this as our baseline. So this is where we started off. Public participation is based on the belief that those who are affected by a decision have a right to be involved in the decision-making process. Yeah. Public participation includes the promise that the public's contribution will influence the decision. Public participation promotes sustainable decisions by recognizing and communicating the needs and interests of all participants, including decision makers. Public participation seeks out and facilitates the involvement of those potentially affected by or interested in a decision. Public participation seeks input from participants in designing how they participate. Public participation provides participants with the information they need to participate in a meaningful way. And public participation communicates to participants how their decisions how their input affected the decisions. Make sense? There's a lot of different components here. I put this is up on our IAP2 website, and we are very happy to share this. So if you want to use this and use it within any of the work that you're doing, all that we ask is that you credit us and just put, from IAP2. But otherwise, please feel free. This is all about tools for you to use in the public engagement process that you're going to initiate. We also have an IAP2 code of ethics, and this is really about you, the practitioner. So whereas we've just talked about a process that any of your participants could certainly go and look at and say, yep, check, they've done this, yes, check, they've done that, so that you're staying true to it. But your integrity as a public participation practitioner matters. And one of the things that you will hear often from any of us that are in the industry is that you are the guardian of the process. You're not supposed to have a take one way or another on what should be the success. You want to assist in the process and meeting the sponsors or clients' objectives. But as a practitioner, you should largely be remaining neutral, because you want to ensure that the public can truly participate in this process. Again, I'm going to read. Purpose. We support public participation as a process to make better decisions that incorporate the interests and concerns of all affected stakeholders and meet the needs of the decision-making body. The role of the practitioner, we will enhance the public's participation in the decision-making process and assist decision-makers in being responsive to the public's concerns and suggestions. We will undertake and encourage actions that build trust and credibility for the process among all the participants. Trust and credibility. It comes back to you or whoever you have given the opportunity to do the public participation process with. To define the public's role, we will carefully consider and accurately portray the public's role in the decision-making process. Openness. We will encourage disclosure of information. Would have helped if I'd switched that. Respect for communities. We will avoid strategies that risk polarizing community interest or that appear to divide and conquer. Have you ever gone into a process when all of a sudden you've got groups on this side and you've got groups on that side and you're going, oh, help. Your role is to try and prevent that and to provide opportunities and techniques that bring you away from that kind of polarization. We will advocate for the public participation process and will not advocate for a particular interest, party, or project outcome. We will ensure that all commitments made to the public, including those made by the decision maker, are made in good faith. And we will continue to mentor new practitioners. So when you take on the role of a public participation practitioner, you actually have a responsibility. And I think this is one of the things that IAP2 is really trying to stress, because we all are affected by the public participation that you do, every one of us, because we may be going out to do a completely different project, but if they've just attended a public participation process that wasn't genuine, what are people going to say? Why bother? You don't have hockey on TV at the moment, but there are many other things that I would like to do. So if you are not running a good public participation process, you will affect absolutely everyone within this industry. So we're encouraging people to take the time to think about these ethics. Decision-based. We had a discussion a little bit earlier on about what is public participation. If public participation does not include a decision to be made that the public or the stakeholders can influence, it's not public participation. Okay? It's awareness, but it's not public participation. This is really critical. You need to ask these questions, okay, when you're starting that process. And you need to ask these questions of your sponsor or your client or whoever else. And the other thing is, please don't just go to the easy to reach. There are so many people out there that are going to be impacted by the decisions that you make. So please take the time. Remember, we were talking about community values and stakeholders. So when you're at that process, really think about who's going to be impacted by this decision and go deep. There are many different ways to engage people, and I'm hoping throughout the day today you're going to hear about those. Youth are perhaps the toughest to engage, but there's also many ways to engage them. Homeless, there are many ways to go out and involve them, whether you're stopping at a cafe or just chit-chatting on the side of the road. There are different techniques. So my only request is do it. The third one of the foundation is goals driven. So we've talked about values, we've talked about decision based, and now we're talking about goals. And what I mean by that is there needs to be both a goal and an objective and a promise. And excuse me, I've just left something over there. This is the IAP2 spectrum. And I think that many of you are probably aware of the IAP2 spectrum if you know who IAP2 is. This is the little postcard that's outside. On the back is the IAP2 spectrum. So it's nice and easy. You can sort of hang on to it and everything else. The reason that I'm just bringing it up, and I'm just bringing it up relatively quickly, is because there are many different ways to involve the public. So we've now gone through the values. So we think that people are going to care about this project that we're going to do. We know that our sponsor is on side because they're committed either through their vision or mission or through their guidelines. And we've got a process. So we've got the core values, and we sort of know where we want to go on all of this. We know that there's a decision that's going to be made, that in fact the public is going to have that ability to influence that decision. Now what we want to do is, well, what do we do? What are the techniques? How do we do these types of things? So in the third foundation, what we're talking about actually is the goals and the objectives. The spectrum that you see up here starts with inform, goes to consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. So inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. And under each of those is a goal. So to provide, under inform, to provide the public with balanced and objective information to assist them in understanding the problem, alternatives, opportunities, and/or solutions. And at the far end, empower, to place final decision-making in the hands of the public. Wow, how scary is that? I have to tell you, I've never actually made it to empower in all of the work that I've done. I've done a lot of work at collaborate. But you need to take a look at the project that you're doing. You need to think about your stakeholders and your sponsors. And you need to think about, where do I fit on that spectrum? And underneath is the promise to the public. And again, under inform, we will keep you informed. Under empower, we will implement what you decide. And I believe we're going to have a discussion on citizens' juries from Ontario a little bit later. Some of the work that they've done in Ontario, can take you all the way to the empower so that they're making the decision. I'm going to pause here for just a second because I want to talk about inform. Inform is not public participation. Okay? What inform is one of the steps on the way to the other levels of consultation. So when you get to consult, you're now into public participation, public engagement, public consultation, etc. If you're solely at the inform level, you're doing public relations or communication. Okay? So it gets a bit confusing because people wonder why it's up there, and it's really a stepping stone. And the other fabulous thing about IAP2 is we debate all of these things all the time. So, and it's really come very clear to us that we don't want people going away and thinking at the informed level is public participation. It's not engagement. And why is it not engagement? What have we just talked about earlier on? There's no decision to be made. They're not able to influence the decision, okay? So think very clearly when you look at this tool and how you can use it. But I think, to be honest, this is a great tool. When you're sitting down and you've gone through all of the work and the homework that you really need to do and all the research, and you're sitting down with your team, because I'm sure all of you work with a team, that are going to be providing the content. Remember, you're the guardian of the process. But other members of your team are going to be important for the content. Show them this. Hand it to them. Where do you think we belong on this spectrum? Okay? What do you think our promise should be to the public? And ask them, because the research that you will have done with your stakeholders will give you a pretty good idea of where they think they should be on the spectrum, depending on the amount of engagement and involvement that they want to have. But it's really important for you to get buy-in from your internal people and your decision makers. Share it with your decision makers. Share it with your internal colleagues. Where do you think that they fit? And the one thing that I will tell you, and Jan teaches, and she would definitely tell you, go at the level that your internal team and your decision makers think is appropriate. Okay? Under promise and over deliver. Okay? Because if you push your decision makers beyond their comfort level, you may start to run into problems. That means you're not being true to the promise that you've made your public. Be true to the promise that you make your public, and tell your public what that promise is. As I said, there's so many different techniques that you can use at all sorts of different levels. We have a toolkit on the IAP2 on the IAP2 website. There's all of that information there about, you know, all the different tools. Please, I would absolutely encourage you to take our training program, our certificate in public participation. We have a 2-day planning course, a 1-day communication course, and a 2-day technique course, and we spend a lot of time going through everything that I've just spoken to you about and going much more into detail about all of the different techniques you can use. Doing it so that it counts. Public participation is most effective and delivers best value for effort when it is undertaken for a specific purpose. To influence and add value to an issue or opportunity so that the best quality or most sustainable decision can be made. If you only go away with one thing from my presentation today, please make sure that there is a decision that needs to be made before you engage and involve the public in this. How can we help? We've talked a little bit about that. But we really do want to be out there. We want to have these conversations. We thrive on these kinds of conversations. As Jan will tell you, this is what we believe in as well. So take that time to do that. So again, it's lots of research, best practices. I was just saying to Donna, I was reading the report, and so I'm going to I'll blush for just a second, but I was reading the practices report of the 2010, because you talk about it in this particular document. TransLink won the Innovation Award that year. And it was one of these just incredible processes where we actually used a game to go out and do deliberative dialogue. So there are many ways to actually engage the public, What I've talked about today is thinking about, before you engage, think about who needs to be engaged, why do they need to be engaged, should they be engaged, and how will they be engaged? Stand up, everybody. Come on, up. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a song, okay? And, I will just, the person that's just blocking, I'm just going to get you to move, just, there we go, just a tad. This was actually brought to us by one of our international members. And to me, it sort of epitomizes who we are as public participation practitioners. The triple P. And so I'm going to sing it, and then you're going to sing it back to me. And then we're going to get the men to sing it, and then we're going to get the women to sing it. Okay? But I'll sing it first. Okay? Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. So I'll sing it again. Funga lave ashe ashe. And I always get this wrong. Funga lave ashe ashe. And what this is all about is I come to you with a clear mind, an open heart, and nothing up my sleeves. So we're going to sing this all together. Okay? Ready? Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. One more time as a group, okay? Funga lave ashe, oh, ashe. Funga lave ashe ashe. Men, here we go. Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. You know, I completely blew that with you. Let men, to give you a really good opportunity, we should really do that one again. Okay, men, are you ready, men? Are you ready? Okay, ready? Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. Oh, excellent, way to go. Okay, ladies, it's your turn, okay? Are you ready? Ready? Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. Lovely. All together one last time. Funga lave ashe ashe, funga lave ashe ashe. Woohoo! So, please, when you go into your public participation processes, open your mind, open your heart, and please, nothing up your sleeves. Thank you very much, everybody.
Please.
Well, just to be a bit provocative, you talked about the goal being to ensure that people make high quality and sustainable decisions. It sounds a bit like we're imposing a particular view of what kind of decision we want. Sustainability has some dimensions, and high quality can mean lots of things. Are we clear that people are allowed to make decisions that we think are bad?
That's a very good question. And when we talk about sustainability, that's a goal. So that's what we're striving for. Why would you allow people to make bad decisions? What would enable you to have the public make that bad decision? Just sort of an example.
Well, for example, a community that wants to block the road expansion project, what if we feel that the larger community needs the traffic, the increased traffic, but the community that the road goes through really doesn't want it?
Okay, so let's take this back a little. So we're going back to the stakeholders, And we know probably within the stakeholder community there are people that want it, there are people that don't want it, and there may be people that are neutral. And we also have the decision makers. So as a public participation practitioner, what we want to do is to bring them all into the room to have this kind of conversation. My experience has been that often people think that they represent their entire community, that they do not want that road. I do not want it. And I am speaking for everyone in my neighborhood. All of a sudden, when you bring them into the room and you're having this conversation with all of them in a safe setting, you sort of, okay, you don't want that. Why? I need to understand why you don't want it, but then I respect that you'll listen to me as to why I do want it. Okay? And you start to create that deliberative dialogue so that you're having that kind of good, fulsome conversation. Now, to be honest, because you're responsible for the process, you're not responsible for the outcome. Okay? And so if someone's coming into you as a public practitioner and saying, I want you to deliver on this, I must have this result at the end, you may have to walk away and say, you know what, I can't actually do that. What I can commit to you is that I will engage all of the appropriate people that should be involved in this decision-making process. I will bring them around the table. We should all have this opportunity to have the conversation, both the positive and the negative, and then we should go through together to determine what is the best process. I have to tell you, in my experience, we had, at TransLink, we had a very large project that already had, was it $80 million of federal funding behind it? And they had committed to it. And when we came out to have this conversation with the public, and we had already designed, it was an interchange program, project. We already designed the interchange. We were coming out to the public and saying, which one would you want? Not, is there a problem that we need to fix? Or what is the problem? But this is what we're going to do. They smashed us. They absolutely smashed us. We had to start all over again. And it was much more a community-driven process at that point in time. And we went back and we asked them, what is the problem? Are we all on the same page with the problem? What are the potential solutions, or are there any solutions? And how do we move forward with it? The wonderful thing was I had a commitment from the decision maker that whatever the public determined would actually, in the long run, be the result. And the result was they walked away from multiple millions of dollars from the federal government and decided not to do it. Okay? So this is why the process is so important, and this is why we talk about a sustainable conclusion. Other questions?
When you talk about decision-based activities, I have had groups where the decision, there's a collective vote, so you have a result of what the collective wants, and so you form the community together. And this is where there's something up the sleeves, is that the people who don't agree with that decision still come to the table to try and figure out how they're going to make this happen. But there's the up the sleeves issue, because we know that they're against it, that they have to act outside of what they actually want or who they represent, because of what the collective wants. And so that's the challenge, is how do you get the cards out from the sleeves? Like, they're invited to the table because they're part of the community, but we all know they've taken a stand against this, however.
Yeah. And I think that's the real tricky part, to be honest, to get people to be honest. I mean, you're all about integrity and transparency and openness and everything else. But they may not have signed the pledge card when they came to the table on being that. So when you set up your process, I think it's really important to, if you know that there are potentially negative issues, you may need to bring those to the floor. Okay? You may need to say, we're all sitting here, or however we're doing it, these are some of the problems that have been identified. You don't need to pinpoint it on that individual, because quite frankly, you don't want to alienate anyone within this process. But people may want to have a good conversation about that. So again, your role is to try and facilitate that kind of good and open conversation and dialogue and see how it moves forward. But again, let me just step back for a second, because it does depend where you are at on the spectrum as to how much you will be involved or engaged. And The spectrum's not for everybody, so please don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not telling you you must do this. In no way am I saying that. This is just a tool that might help you think through what different processes that you might want to have. But I think, again, you know because you've done your homework with your stakeholders that these problems exist. So if they're not going to bring it up, and yet it's always going to dog you all the way throughout, maybe be bold and bring it forward.